The lesson that I wanted to get into today was about the subjunctive again, and let's go to the blog that I wrote, and we will kind of go over this. Now, this is something, okay, this is kind of unscheduled because I actually just recently wrote this blog, and I thought it would be interesting for us to do it because the subjunctive mood is not normally taught, and especially it's not taught for English as a foreign language. It is one of these subjects that is kind of foregone. And why? Because it's not as commonly used in today's speech, in today's common tongue. And for the reason it does resemble a more formal type of English. The subjunctive mood, however, is used indirectly with a lot of, with one thing at least that we've already drilled with over and over again, and that is when we're talking about hypotheticals. Now, the subjunctive has many forms, okay, and one of these forms, which we have already talked about, is dealing with hypotheticals. Specifically, if I were, okay? You remember, and this is usually pertains to second conditional when we're talking about this, but if you've ever asked yourself or me the reason why we use were, this is part of subjunctive mood, and it clearly indicates, it's clearly indicative of a hypothetical situation. That's why we like to use were instead of was for a present hypothetical, because it differentiates reality from unreality. Okay, so that's one facet of the subjunctive which we have already learned, but you actually didn't know that we were learning this. So we'll talk about that a little later on, because we're probably already pretty familiar with it, and you are actually pretty good with your conditionals. Congratulations. So that's number one. Now, number two, really, that we'll focus more on today is something that you've probably never, I'm sure that you've never heard of before. This is more dealing with the mandative subjunctive. And the mandative subjunctive, well, if something first, okay, if something is mandative, okay, let me get we'll just have to go to the big one. Okay, so mandative is an adjective, but to mandate, okay, to mandate. Now, this type of subjunctive that, again, we're covering is called the mandative subjunctive. There are other forms of subjunctive, but this is a common, well, more common form. And the name of it kind of gives or foretells what or how we use it. Mandate. Okay. An official command. Okay, this is very important because the subjunctive, this type that we're learning, is very similar to an imperative, which you are familiar with, Jamey, right? This sort of thing. It is a command, essentially. So that's kind of the background, gives us a little bit of information of what we're dealing with, okay? Now, that being said, let's get back into the form, okay? Now listen very closely to what I'm about to say. I'm going to give you an example sentence, okay? All right. Now, Do I have your ears? Okay, all right. I know it's early, but I think we can push through this, man. All right. All right. So, listen to this sentence. It is important that you do your homework. Okay, let me write this. All right. I'll tract. It's important that you do your, I'll abbreviate, okay, homework, write it out, homework. Okay, now, does anything look strange about this? This can be a trick question because, I'll help. Nothing really looks strange about this, right? It looks kind of like a normal sentence, okay? We have an adjective here, we have another clause here, that clause, that you do your homework. Yeah, it looks normal, right? Does it? Yeah, okay. All right, now let me change something. Okay, let me scratch out you, and let me put Jamey. Okay, now read that sentence for me, please. I have to change this possessive. Yes, I have to change the possessive. Yes, sorry. Yes. Okay. It's important that Jamey. No, well, don't change the sentence. Read it as it is written. Yeah. Okay. Bravo. Now, does that, or do you see anything that looks rather odd about this sentence? Yeah, the verb do. Okay. Yeah, that's strange, isn't it? Is this correct, first of all? Well, that's not what subjunctive states, okay? And now we are treading in the waters of mandative subjunctive here. Or just let's call it subjunctive mood, okay? This is a very interesting form here. Now, this verb in green, or this infinitive actually, is nothing is wrong with it. This is fine. This is how we use this form of subjunctive, okay? Now, oftentimes, many times, people will use this form of subjunctive. However, it is cloaked, or it is masked, or that means that you can't really see it because of the subjects we use. We use maybe a plural subject like you, or they, or we, right? And the infinitive, the bare infinitive, seems to have agreement with this. Okay? It's important we do our homework. Okay, so this looks normal. This actually looks like it's present simple, right? However, it is really not. Okay, so it is really not present simple. It is really a bare infinitive. Now, it really stands out when we change this subject to a third person singular, like Jamey, or he, or she. Okay, her. It really stands out in this case. Now, you may ask, yourself, and you may ask me, what's the point of this? Is that a question that you might have conjured up? We should invent something. Correctly, to do it correctly. Okay, we are correct. We do things correctly. Yes. Now, this subjunctive in this form, it is not as commonly used today, and especially in British English. Instead of this subjunctive, you will often find the use of should do. Okay, they substitute should in many cases instead of this present subjunctive form. Okay, but however, this is a very nice form. It is I would say, a formal form. It's a very refined way of speaking. It's a very polished way of speaking. It sounds nice. I think it's music to the ears. That's just me. I'm kind of a weirdo when it comes to this. However, we often use this subjunctive in phrases. For example, we use subjunctive with phrases like "May the force be with you." Right? Have you heard of that? May the force be with you. That's kind of a pretty big movie quote, right? May the force be with you, right? What about God bless you? God save the king. Okay, or the queen. Okay, all of these are actually subjunctive forms. Be that as it may. That's another one. But okay, we do use this form often. Okay, well, no, excuse me. We don't use it often. We use the hypothetical subjunctive, or the subjunctive with were, more often. But what this does, Mr. D, Mr. Dom, okay, this places emphasis, importance. It stresses the necessity, the the pure essence of something. It again is very synonymous with an imperative form. Okay, and as a matter of fact, an imperative form also uses this bare infinitive do. Okay, so you can think of it very closely to an imperative. All right, now let's go to the. Are you following me? Are you still here? Have you got your coffee? All right. Okay. All right. You're following me very closely. Yes. Remember about our adjectives and adverbs. Okay. Okay. If you're listening, okay, never mind. That's another subject. Okay. Okay. Now we have already covered the base form of this type of subjunctive. It's essentially the verb be. Excuse me, the infinitive without to of the verb. Okay, it's as simple as that. As you can see in this chart, okay, we have three verbs. We have be, have, and do. Okay, the subjunctive does not change at all. It stays the exact same for every form of subject. Singular, plural, first person, second person, doesn't matter. It stays the same. So that's the easy thing, right? That's the very easy thing. It's actually a pretty easy form to implement because it's just the bare infinitive. Okay. Did you notice? Okay, let me click on this. Read that for me. Yes. So, okay, that means that, oops, I'm lost. Okay. Yeah. Here we were. Okay. Here. Okay. We have future. We have present. We have past. Okay. It doesn't matter. Okay. The subjunctive functions independently of time. It has nothing to do with the tense or time we use. Okay. It's always the infinitive, and that's that. It is an infinitive. It's like any other infinitive you can think of, even infinitives with two. I want you to do. I wanted you to do. I will want you to do. So it's the same premise. It's the same concept.